Excuse me, do we have to go to Excel like on our own like
No,
system now, or
just no. For now, no.
okay, okay.
If you want to be practicing alongside what I'm doing, you can, but you don't have the data set yet. So that's why I say for now, just watch. Maybe from the next class, you get the data set before the class.
Okay, no
Do you
problem.
understand?
Yes, sir, I do.
Yeah. So today we're going to start with Microsoft Excel, trying to understand what is Microsoft Excel, and also learn some of the basic functions that we have in Microsoft Excel for data analysis, right? So in the course of Microsoft Excel, what we are going to learn is basic Excel, lookup functions and formulas, sorting and filtering, conditional formatting, pivot table and charts, Power Query, right? So there are so many other things out there that you can learn in Microsoft Excel that concerns data analytics. But these things are not things that you'll be using every day, right? So because you're not going to be using them every day, or you might most likely not even use them because so like I, for example, there are so many functions and formulas that I know in Microsoft Excel that I have not even used and I don't even know when I will use them. So in order not to bombard you with that, and our class is just supposed to be for 4 months, we are going to be learning things that I know that you're going to be using all the time in data analytics. More like the necessary, all those other ones are there, right? That you can learn them later. But the ones that I'm going to teach you are the ones that you're most likely going to be using all the time in data, right? So we're also going to learn data cleaning, right? Somebody was asking in our last class that I should talk a bit about data cleaning. So when we get to data cleaning and preparation, we're going to talk about data cleaning. So at the end of every two, oh, I think I skipped that. I removed it by mistake. At the end of every two, you're going to get a capstone project, right? More like a final project. So this capstone project, before you perform a capstone project, we would have done like a capstone preparation project. So a capstone project is what you put in your portfolio, right? So it's like a complete data analysis project from beginning to end, right? From where you define what the problem is to when you give recommendation. So your project is you're going to have documentation, you're going to have PowerPoint, you're going to have dashboards, right? So your documentation is going to carry everything that you did in your analysis. Emmanuel,
Sorry, please. I'm very
what?
It's a mistake, please.
Okay, all right. So your documentation is supposed to carry everything that you did in your analysis, but that's we are going to come back to where we enter data analysis proper, right? So to start with the very first thing, what is Microsoft Excel? So Microsoft Excel is an application which we already know and is a form of a spreadsheet. So if you're giving an example, Microsoft Excel is just let's say an application, the way they ask you social media and then you call WhatsApp, you call Telegram and all of that, right? So it's an application that is in the form of a spreadsheet. So an example of a spreadsheet, you have Microsoft Excel application, right? So a spreadsheet is made up of workbooks and worksheets, right? So as the name implies, workbook, inside of your normal notebook, you have sheets, right? So the spreadsheet has rows and columns, so like a workbook. And inside of that workbook, you can create multiple sheets inside of that workbook, right? So why do we use Excel? Why is Excel necessary for you to use? So this part is just for you to know how to sell the tool that you know how to use the most. So if I know how to use Excel and I want to sell it to somebody, or I want somebody to come and learn Excel from me, all I have to do is all I have to do is convince the person why Microsoft Excel is better than every other tool out there, right? So the very first one, Microsoft Excel is used for various calculations. So not just for data analysis, we also use people in accounting use Microsoft Excel, people in engineering use Microsoft Excel. Everybody uses Microsoft Excel, even before you decided to do data. one way or the other. You use Microsoft Excel to perform one calculation or the other. And also you can perform data analysis in Microsoft Excel. You can also create beautiful charts in Microsoft Excel. So now let's take it out of anything analysis, right? You can, sorry, you can also create a task list in Microsoft Excel, create calendar, goal planning. So it's like a very versatile app that you can use for different things, not just for data analysis. You can use it for different things, and it's very user friendly, right? So the way somebody in the market is going to be using Excel is different from the way that you, as a data analyst, is going to be using Microsoft Excel. Sometimes you see job being done, and then you be asking yourself, was this from Excel that I know? Is it my Excel that is this? But the other person is on a different level of Excel, or maybe doing something else in the Excel. So Excel is very, very big and can accommodate everybody from every specification. So that's why we're going to be learning Excel also, so we can have the knowledge and because it's user friendly. So before we go into our Excel worksheet, right, so that we can understand all of these things, what are ribbons, what are tab, right? We're going to talk about calculations in Excel so that when we move to Excel, we know that we are in Excel now. Okay. So the very first thing is calculation. Before you start calculations in Excel, you have to understand the operators we have in Excel. And the very first one is our comparison operators. So comparison operators are operators that we use to compare values, two or more values in Excel. And we have, and they are commonly known as, we have the equals to, right? So I can say is A equals to B, is B equals to C, and all of that. We also have the not equals to, we have the greater than, we have the less than, we have the greater than or equals to, we have the less than or equals to, right? And you can see the signs the way they are being written. Our equal sign, to say not equals to, you have the greater than and the less than sign combined together. So if you are like me that was struggling with greater than and less than sign, how they are supposed to be for a very long time, the greater than is your right hand, the less than is your left hand. So just use it like that to practice. So anytime I'm struggling, I'm like, okay, this is and this one is, right? So it took me a long time to actually grab that. So if you are struggling like me before, the way I was struggling before, that's a very good tip for you. Then we have the greater than or equals to, and then we have the less than or equals to. So these are the comparison operators that we have in our Excel, right? Then we have mathematical operators that we have in Excel, also known as formulas. We call them formulas or you call them mathematical operators. So we have the addition, we have the subtraction, we have the multiplication, which is also known as the asterisk. So if you are known to be writing your multiplication, that's your times, as Nigerians we call it as X. In your Microsoft Excel on all of these tools, you're now it's now written as asterisk and no longer your X sign. Then we have the division, which is our slash sign, and then we have the exponential, which is the inverted V that is upwards. So these are the mathematical operators that we have in our Excel. So now, before we even start any writing any calculations and all of that, we need to understand the difference between formulas and functions in Excel. So I'm sure sometimes you hear formulas, sometimes you hear functions, and you are wondering what are they talking about, right? So formulas are mathematical expressions like the ones we just spoke about now, these operators we just spoke about, that we write in our Excel sheet to perform calculations. And before you start any formula, whether formula or function, you must put your equal sign. So you know in our normal mathematics, we write 1 plus 1 equals to 2. But in Microsoft Excel, you have to put your equal sign before you put your formula in there. That way, Excel knows that you are performing a calculation. That's the only way you can tell that you're performing a calculation, right? So that's for formulas. Formulas are mathematical expressions that we use to perform there are formulas that, or expressions that we use to perform calculations in our Microsoft Excel, right? Why functions? Functions are predefined formulas, right? So when I give you something, I give you a pen and I say this is a pen, then I take something else, maybe a book, and I name that book. I name this, I give that book the responsibility of this pen. So anytime I call the book, it gives me a pen. That is now, the book is now referred to as a function. So what am I trying to say? So functions are, they have inbuilt formulas in them. So the functions are made up of formulas, right? So instead of calling it addition, that's your plus sign, we call it sum. So anytime I call out the sum function, I'm basically saying perform addition for me instead of saying addition. And you're going to see the reason why this is necessary. You might say, oh, why are you giving it another name? But then you're going to see why it's necessary. So that's the difference between functions and formulas. Formulas are straightforward. They're just your mathematical expressions like your addition, your subtraction, your asterisks, and so on. Then for functions, functions are predefined formulas, right? So that we use for calculation in Excel. So why do we need these functions and formulas? Like why do we need this function? What difference does it make in performing calculations? Now, we if I'm trying to perform addition in my Microsoft Excel, right? So you can see I have A1, B1, and so on here. We're going to explain that when we get to Excel, right? So let's say I'm trying to add up range of numbers in my Excel. I have numbers like 1 to 100 and I want to add them up. If I'm using my if I'm using formulas, I'm going to say 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. I'm going to be writing all of that till I get to 100 if I'm using formulas, right? But that's too much work. Nobody wants to be stressed like that. This is the 21st century. Nobody wants to be working like that. So it means that if you have a million rows to add up, you say row 1 plus row 2 plus row 3 plus row 4. When are you going to finish? This is why they now created these functions, right? So when I give Excel the function and say sum up these numbers for me, all I need to do is give it the start of the number and the end of the number. So I'm going to give it the first cell that I have and range it and give it the last cell. So basically I'm going to say sum the first cell, then put my dot, that's a column, and then the last cell. Again, I'm just giving a rough explanation. We're going to go over to Excel to see what I'm talking about. So you have a dot, and then you are saying you're just giving it basically 2 cells, and then it's going to calculate that entire 1 million rows that you have for you. So instead of giving it 1 plus 1, 2 plus 2, 3 plus 3, 4 plus, and so on, you just give it the range of cell that you have, and it's going to give you your answer. That's the difference between using a formula and using a function. So a function makes it very easy for you to perform calculations. So let's talk about the basic functions that we have in Excel. Then we're going to move to Microsoft Excel. So we have the count A, count blank. We have the sum, we have average, we have products, we have round, we have mean and max, we have the substitute, right? So let's start with the very first one, the count function. So the count function is used to count number of cells that contains numbers. Count function, we only count cells that contains numbers, right? It means that if you have a cell that contains text, the count function is not going to count it. It's just going to say, I cannot see anything in here. I'm not counting it. Then the count A function is going to count number of cells that are not empty. Meaning that if in a cell you have numbers or you have text or you have characters or you have space, as long as that particular cell is not empty, your count A function is going to count it. Count function counts only cells that contain numbers. Count A counts everything, whether numbers, cells, anything. As long as that cell is not empty, it will count it. While your oh, there's no count blank here, sorry about that. There's one called count blank here, the one I have up here. Is count blank. So as the name implies, it's only going to count the number of cells that are blank. Only the number of cells that are blank that do not contain anything. So that's the difference between these three things. Count, we count number of cells that contain numbers. Count A, we count number of cells that are not empty. While count blank is going to count number of cells that are empty. Then we have sum function. I already explained that the addition have been replaced by the sum function. So sum is used to sum up numbers or add up numbers in the range that you have. So if you have numbers in the range, all you need to do is use the sum function to do that. Then we have the average. The average calculates the average no- it calculates the average of range of numbers. So average is also known as the mean, right? So instead of, if I want to look for the mean, I will say 1 plus 2 plus 3 all divided by the total number. Why do I need to do that? I just need to call out the average function and give it the range of number that I want to look for the mean, and I'm going to get my answer straight up. So that's for the average. Then we have the product function. The product function is used to multiply numbers within a range. So the product function is replacing the multiplication formula, right? So the product, if you call out product, you're basically saying multiply these values for me. That's what the product function is used for. Then we have the round function. The round function is used to round up number to a specific number of digits. So if I have a number that is like this, right? So you can see I have the round function is quite different. It says give me the number and number of digits. So if I have something like this, right, and I want to round this up to the nearest two numbers, the nearest two decimal places, all I need to do is give it the number that I have here, and then comma the number of digits is now going to be 2, right? If you cannot see my screen, then I think it's from you, it's not from my end, because I don't think any other person is complaining. Maybe you should leave the call and join again. Or is any other person not seeing my screen? Okay, I believe we're all good. Or am I talking to myself?
We can, so we can hear you.
No, we
As if you
can hear
speak.
you. We can hear
We
you.
can hear you.
All right, thank you. So if I now want to round this to the nearest two decimal places, all I need to do is say give it the number that I have and the number of decimal places I want. That's the number of digits that I have. So I now have 2. So Excel is going to return 5.78. If I want it to round it to the nearest one decimal place, all I need to do is change this 2 to 1, and Excel is going to give me 5.8 as my answer, rounding it up to the nearest one decimal place. If I want to round this to the nearest whole number, meaning I don't want any decimal place, all I need to do is change this 2 that I have here to 0, and Excel is going to now give me my answer as 6, basically rounding it up for me. So our normal mathematics, if you have 5, if I have 6.4 and I want to round it up, it's going to be 6, right? If I have 6.5 and I want to round it up, I'm going to get 7 because it's up to 5. So our normal math taught us that as long as it is 0.5 and above, you can convert it to 1. Although your lecturers refused to do that when they were giving you your test score. But anyways, that's what mathematics says. So if you get more than half and you want to round up the value, that number turns to 1 automatically, right? That is why Excel is going to change this to 6 when you say you should round it to the nearest whole number. So now we have an idea of the basic functions in Excel. We're going to move over to our Excel spreadsheets, right? And understand, we're going to move over to our Excel spreadsheets. Whose name is Workspace that want to join the call? Please, you guys should be using your real name. I don't know who is Workspace that wants to join the call now. I don't know if it's Google that wants to come and chase me out. so, so we are going to move over to our Excel spreadsheet and continue what we have been saying, or what we have been saying there. The person that is asking me about silly mathematics and round function, please now, we just started. You're already asking me question that me sef I don't even know. I'm teaching you what you're going to be using for data analytics. I'm not a mathematician, okay? So let's move over to our Excel spreadsheet. So before we come back to this place, let's open a new worksheet. Let's start afresh, right? So if I want to create a new worksheet in my Excel, when you open your Excel worksheet and you want to create a new worksheet, you just click on blank notebook, right? That being said, you see this welcome to Excel formula tutorial, pivot table tutorial. I know that most of you have opened Excel like 2 billion times, but you've never ever tried to even see what that thing is talking about. I want to give you a task. Well, after this class, or maybe when you have time, download these things and go through them. There are basic functions and formulas that Excel is going to teach you for free, right? And I think the explanations that they have there is like quite very simple for you to very simple for you to understand, right? So I want to create a blank workbook so we can start and see. So this is a blank workbook. As you can see, you people are distracting me with your messages because I'm trying to multitask to see if anybody has a question and to teach at the same time. So your messages, if you're not paying attention, you are forming teacher two in the message box. I'll be paying serious attention to what I'm teaching now. Since you are teaching yourself in the message box. Anyways, so this is a new workbook that I have created, and it's called workbook 3 because I think I have other ones open. So this one is now workbook 2, there's workbook 1, right? So I have workbook 3. This is called workbook 3 because I've not saved it. So if you want to save your Excel file, which is the very first one, the very first basics, right? Depending on how you want to save it, you can go to your file. You can just do Control S and save, right? But when you go to the files aspect of your data of your Excel and you see your save as, this way you can choose how you want to save your Excel workbook. You have different options here. This is going to be really necessary, especially when we move to SQL and we're trying to save data that we want to transfer to SQL Server. Because most times you have issues when you try to export an Excel file into SQL Server. So you have to convert it into a CSV file. How do you convert it? You just save the file as a CSV file. So if I say save your file as a CSV file, I'm basically saying when you are saving, come to this place and pick CSV file, format delimited, right? That's what I'm basically saying you should save as. So if you come to this place, you see different ways that you can save your file. So if somebody says go and convert your Excel into a particular format, you're basically saying go and save it as this format. So all you need to do is come to your save as and pick the format which you want to save that particular document as, and it's going to save like that, right? So that's for that. Then let's back to our Excel sheet, right? So what we have here, these things are called tabs. So this is your home tab, this is your insert tab, this is your drop tab. So that the day I ask you to share your screen and I say go to your data tab, you tell me you don't know what data tab is, me and you wear trousers that day. So these things are called tabs. Why what you have inside of the tab is they are called ribbons. In case you see something somewhere and somebody is saying go to this ribbon or go to this tab, that's what they're talking about. So these are called tabs and these are called ribbons. And inside of each tab, you have different things and what they do with those things. And we're going to be using most of these things, especially the ones we have in our home tab, insert tab, and then in the data tab. These are the places where we're going to be using almost everything that we have in there, right? So back to our Excel sheet. This tiny holes that you have, my Excel is misbehaving because it's not clicking where I asked it to click. These tiny holes that we have are referred to as cells. So when I was talking about range of cells, I'm talking about these boxes. So this box is referred to as we are referred to as cells, right? This is referred to as column. So this is referred to as column A, this is referred to as column B, this is referred to as column C, and so on. These ones are referred to as rows, row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, and so on. Now, if I want to call a particular cell, because I'm not going to call it cell, so if I call this one cell, I'll call this one cell, I'll call this one cell. Which cell am I talking about? So if I want to call this cell that I have here, this cell is going to be called D6. Why is it called D6? Because it's in column D and it's in row 6. So if I have something here and I want to refer to that thing that I have inside of that column, inside of that cell, I'm going to call it D6, right? I cannot start calling what is in there. So if I say, if I have, in here I have Annie, right? So if I want to call the value I have inside of this D6. I'm not going to say Annie, I'm just going to say D6. So if I want to get that value I have there, I'm just going to say equals to D6. Can you see that the value of the cell is now highlighted, meaning that, oh, you are calling me. So anytime I call D6, it's going to provide Annie for me. So if I say enter, Annie. So anytime I call D6, it's giving me Annie. Anytime I call D6, it's giving me Annie. Now, even if I call F6, it's going to give me Annie, right? So that is how you refer to the values you have inside of a cell. So it's called cell D6. Again, these are called, let me go over to the top. These are called tabs, these are called ribbons, these are called columns, and the column name is as it is on top of it. So this is column E, column F. These are called rows, and these are called cells. And the cells are named according to the column that they can be found and the rows also, right? So this now will be referred to as K10. I hope this is clear to everybody. There's nobody that is having issues here now, right? So now, if we want to create new worksheet, I'm just making sure that I go down to the low, so that nobody will say they've never seen this thing before. If you want to create new worksheets, the way you can create, I said that you can create so many worksheets inside of the workbook. This is the workbook, and inside of the workbook, you can create multiple worksheets. You can see here, down here, when you have your plus sign, you just need to click on the plus sign, and you see you have worksheet 2. If I want another one, I click on it. If I want another one, I click on it. You see me? I don't even know if it's my network at this point or it's you. Is anybody also experiencing what Prince is experiencing?
Well, yeah.
It's not
Your
about
network
hearing
is
me.
fine.
We can hear you.
Then Prince is your network. Sorry. Please log out and log in again. So we have sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3, sheet 4, and then sheet 5. You can create as so many as possible, right? And also, it is also good to rename your sheet, because if I have so many things in different sheets and I'm looking for something, it might take me so much time to know which sheet I put that particular thing. But if I name the sheet according to what I'm working on, so let's say the first one I'm working on basic function, right? It's only right for me to rename that as basic function. All I need to do is either you double click, which is very fast. You can see that it's highlighted, and then you name it, right? The moment something is highlighted like this, it means that when you write something, that thing disappears. So this sheet will disappear, right? So if I start writing something and I say basic, you can see that that sheet is gone. So now I've saved that particular sheet as basic. So if I'm looking for where I have basic functions, I just need to come to this sheet. I don't need to be fighting all over. Now, another way to rename if your double clicking is not working, all you need to do is right click and click on rename, right? And you can see that it's highlighted again. All you need to do is name it something. So let me say this one is logic. So if I'm looking for something, I know where to find it, right? So that's for creating sheets and naming sheets. What if I create multiple sheets and I see that sheet 5 is supposed to be before logical, but I've made a mistake. What do I do? Do I start deleting and start creating again? No, I can move my sheets around. All I need is to do is press and hold sheet 5 and drag it and put it where logic is. Can you see that logic has now moved for sheet 5? Sheet 5 is now after basic. So you can move your sheets around however you want it to be. So you don't need to start creating from the beginning, because one sheet is supposed to come before the other sheet. Also, you can hide your sheet, because yesterday I was talking about who have access to your data and what and what and what. So if I'm working in particular data with a particular data and I don't want somebody to see it, or maybe I have a rough file inside of my workbook and I don't want my boss to see it, I just want him to see the clean work, I can easily hide anything I want to hide. All I need to do, let's say I want to hide sheet 3. I'm going to click on sheet 3, right click on it and click on hide, and it's hidden. If I want it back, all I need to do is click on maybe sheet 4 or logic, any of the sheets I have, right? Right click on any of them and then click on hide. So it's going to ask me what do I want to unhide in case I have multiple sheets that are hidden. I'm going to say, oh, I want sheet 3, and I'm going to say okay. Another of the reasons why you need to rename your sheet, because Imagine you are reading like so many sheets and then you don't know the one that you want to hide and your boss is in your presence waiting for you. You just open one sheet that you were doing nonsense in there, right? And maybe your job will not be on the line. So you need to always rename your sheet so that for easy access, not just for you, especially when you're working in a team. If you not come to work and you have over 50 sheets open, they will not start calling you and start asking you, please, which of the sheets do you have visualization? That's not a good way to work. So always make sure that your description is very, very clear. And also not just for your colleagues, for yourself also, because if you do not describe your work very well, trust me, if you leave that work and come back, like let's say 1 week later, you'll be so surprised, like what's going on here? Like everything will be looking like a struggle for you. So always make sure you hide and not hide. Maybe now you can ask your question. So the same way you can hide sheets, you can also hide columns and you can hide rows, right? So let's say I have something in column F that I want to hide. All I need to do is highlight column F, right click, and I'm going to click on hide. F is gone, right? But then I can bring F back if I want to, right? So if you notice, I want you to notice the difference as if network is going to allow you. If you have your plus sign like this, can you see that the middle of the plus sign is dark, is black? If I have it like this and I right click and I say unhide, nothing is going to happen. And then you start feeling like, hey, my file is gone. Let me show you again. If my plus sign is here, the only time you can go to any sheet and unhide is when you're hiding sheets. But if you're hiding column, this one now takes extra attention for you to do, for you to unhide. So you have to come to this place. So if you can see here, the plus sign in the middle is dark. But if I take it to the side, can you see that it's white? This is the only time I can unhide. If I take it to this place, can you see that it's dark? Dark. So it's only when where I have that column that is hidden that I can take it out. That place must be white. So if I right click on it and I say hide, my F column is back. So it must be white. That middle of your cross sign must be hide. Must be white. It took me time for me to actually get that. So this is a bonus to you guys because so you don't get frustrated like me the day I went to lock one column and I couldn't unlock it. So the same thing with your rows. So if I want to hide row 4, all I need to do is click on it and click on hide and it's gone, right? If I want to unhide, you can see this is black, right? If I take it closer to where I'm supposed to have, I'm now seeing that this is now white, right? The middle is white. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to click on hide and it's back. Hope that is clear to anybody. Is there anybody I'm speaking Chinese to? Because we're about to move to greater things.
Hi,
Emmanuel,
that's fine. I'm good.
Your hand is up.
Yeah, it's clear.
All right. So every other thing that we have in our ribbons, we're going to talk about them. We're going to learn them when we are learning functions and formulas and some other things when they come up. So we don't sit down and start learning them one by one by one. So when we get to where we have to apply them, we're going to now talk about them, right? So, but this is just to give you a basic knowledge about Excel interface, okay? So now we're going to move into basic functions, the basic functions that we just explained in our slide, right? So I have a sheet here that contains a data set. In our last class, I told us what a data set is. Let me increase my sheet. So in our last class, I told us what a data set is. I said a data set is the collection of data. So this is basically a data set, right? So this is a data set that we have, and this is known as a sales data set because it's telling us about sales from our company. So this data set contains the invoice ID. So every time you go to buy something in the supermarket or in the store, anytime you go to buy anything and they give you an invoice receipt, there's always an invoice number, right? You can get one of your receipts and check. So there's always an invoice number and it's always recorded. And also this data set has the branch and this data set has the city, that's where you got these goods from. And this data set has the customer type. One means this person is a customer, I'm sorry, is a member. So you have some stores where you have membership card, right? So one means yes, this person is a member of our store. Y zero means this person is not. Based on the gender, FM means female, M means male. Then we have the products that the person got. So this female got health and beauty, and this is the unit price for health and beauty. This is the quantity of the products that the person got. This is the revenue generated. So revenue is 7 times this, right? So this is the 5% tax from this revenue. This is the payment method that the person used in paying. So this particular lady used the e-wallet to pay. This is cost of goods sold. That's how much this particular goods was gotten. And then this is the gross income, and this is the rating that this customer gave to our store. So you can see that this is the complete sales data. So from this data set, I can get a lot, right? But that's not why we're here. We're trying to see how we can use the basic function in Excel to work on this data set. So the very first one which we spoke about was the count function. And we said that the count function only counts cells that contains numbers, right? So this function says how many entries are there in the invoice, how many entries are there in the invoice ID column. So you remember we have an invoice ID column, right? We take it back. We have an invoice ID column, this, and it's asking us how many entries do we have in this column. Now, if we use the count function, we are going to get 0. Let's try using it. We'll get 0, then I will explain why we got 0, right? So if I want to use the count function now to get the answer to this particular question, I'm going to say equals to count. So now, remember the count takes the range. According to the explanation that you saw in the slide, it takes the range. The range is also known as the values. We're talking about the values that you have, the range of values that you have, right? So the count is telling you, okay, give me the values or give me the range. So I want to count what I have in this. It says, what is the total number of invoice ID that I have? The first value I have in the A column, or what I have in A1, we already established why it is called A1, is known as the title or the header. So we're not using that for anything. We cannot count that. It's not part of what we're asked. The same thing with B, same thing with C. So it's the name of those particular column or the values that we have. So now we have our values started from A2 all the way to A26, right? And we asked us for the total value that we have. So looking at this, you can easily just count, oh, we have 25 values, because this is going to be 2, 3, this is going to start from here 1. So basically, if you count 26, you're going to minus 1 because of the first thing you have there. So basically, you know that you have 25 values. But this is so small, you can easily just guess it, right? If you have up to, let's say, 500 and something rows, and you do not know the rows that you have or the number of rows that you have, the data is so big, this is where your count function is going to be really, or all of this your function is going to be relevant. But we are starting with a small data so you don't get confused. So now, to get the range of values that I have, right, I'm going to give it the first value I have. The first invoice number that I have is this, which is A2. So I'm just going to click on A2, right? So I can decide to drag A2 all the way down to give it the range of numbers I want to count, right? So if you check up here, I want you to be looking at this formula bar. So I'll not be going up, going to this side and doing it to this side. So everything that we have here, everything I'm writing here is showing in the formula bar, right? So I'm not moving up and down. So if I give it A2 and drag all the way down, you can see that a range is formed. This is referred to as a range now. So it's saying that A column 26, A26 is transformed a range, trying to say that I want you to calculate everything that I have from A2 all the way to A36, I'm sorry, 26, right? Because I dragged it. So if I close this bracket, remember, before you start any calculation, you have to put your equal sign, right? And after you put in your formula, your functions, you have to always close your bracket, right? So if I do this and I say enter, now we have 0. But you know that that is not 0, right? Why do we now have 0? Now this is where my second explanation comes into the picture. I was saying that the count function counts only numbers, cells that contain numbers. I know that these things you can see it. Oh, you are saying yes now, but this is numbers now. Why is it counting? Why is it telling us zero? Now, this is where you should pay attention really, because when you are frustrated, you might not see it until your head is now down. Excel define numbers to the left. I want you to write it somewhere. And text to the right. If you see anything in a cell that is defined to the left, is defined as a number in Excel. If you see anything that is defined to the right, is defined as a text in Excel. So what do I mean by left and right? You see this part here, this end of this cell is referred to as the left. This beginning part of this cell is referred to as the right. So when you define or when you put something in Excel and Excel takes it to this side, it means that it's a number. Excel is seeing it as a number. If you put something and Excel take it to this side, it means that Excel is seeing it as a text, right? So if I write 1 and enter, can you see that it has moved to the left? So it means that Excel is seeing it as a number. But if I write A and enter, can you see that it's staying at the right? It means that Excel is seeing this as a text. So if I try to do anything with this, Excel will say, this is a text, so this is not a number. Now let's go back. Since we understand this, I believe this is clear. These the numbers that we have here, can you see that they are to the right? Can you tell the difference between what you have in A and what you have in M? The difference in the placement. This is to the right and this is to the left, right? So basically what Excel is trying to say here is that this particular A column is defined as a text column. So if you're trying to perform any calculation there, it's going to tell you, I cannot perform calculations because this is text. I'm reading this as a text. So the only time it's going to read it as a number is only when it is defined to the left part of the cell. So if I try to use the count function to count the gross income now, I'm going to get an answer because it's defined as a number. And we say the count function only counts number of cells that contains numbers. That is why we got 0. So if you're trying to perform any calculation and it's giving you headache, especially when you have number, it means that that particular cell is defined as a text and not a number, right? So you can always format that number, this particular column that you have numbers, you can always format it as a number. So if let's say you want to actually perform a calculation there, you don't want it to be a text column, because most times when you are importing data, before the data gets to your Excel, the format or the data type, we call it data type of this data, would have changed. And if you don't pay close attention, you'll be having errors in your calculation because you're looking at it as numbers now. Or is Excel seeing it as a number? Excel is not seeing it as a number. So this is where number formatting, text formatting comes into play. You can see I'm teaching basic function and I'm teaching other things too, right? So if I want to format this text, these values that I have here in this column as a text, sorry, as a number and not a text, is if you go to your home tab, you're going to see a number ribbon, a ribbon that's talking about number. So this entire ribbon is for formatting numbers and text, not just number, for formatting numbers and text. So if I open this drop down arrow, this is called a drop down arrow. So in case you're having issues and I say share your screen and I say click on the drop down arrow, you start asking me what is the drop down arrow, me and you will fight. So this is a drop down arrow. So if you click on the drop down arrow, you're going to see it even bigger. You see all the things that you have, right? So it's saying that this particular thing, okay, I didn't highlight it. So let me highlight that cell and click on the drop down arrow, right? So we have different things here. So you can see general, you can see numbers, you can see currency, you can define number as currency. Like this place is where we have revenue, and that place also where we have tax. You can change that to currency so that you can see the currency of your company there, right? When we get to data cleaning, we'll touch it very well. But I just want you to see how to format numbers. So in case you import data and you're trying to perform a calculation and you're having issues. So you come to where you have numbers. So if you can see text, if I want to convert a number to text, I can do that. One thing to note, text cannot be converted to numbers. So if I have A, B, C, E, F, G, H, I cannot convert it to be a number. But numbers can be converted to be text. I can convert 1, 2, 3, 4 and define it as a text, be it in Excel, be it in Power BI, be it in SQL, be it in Python, be it in tech in general. Text cannot be converted to as numbers. Numbers can be converted to as text, right? So I have this number and this number is reading as a text value in Excel. All I need to do is come to where I have numbers and I'm going to say, okay, it's not moving. I don't know why it's not moving. It's not converting into numbers. That's another way that Excel can tell you that my head is touching, right? Your Excel can be touching anyways. But that is how to define it to be numbers. All you need to do is go to where you have your, I'm coming, let me select just the numbers and leave the ID I have. So let me just select only this place and then go to, I don't know what's wrong at this point. But basically, that is how to convert it. I thought maybe it was the text I have there, not converting to numbers. So that's how you convert what you have here. So when it has converted, you see that the position of these numbers that you have here will shift to the left. So it will no longer be towards the right. It will now move to the left. When Excel start working properly, we'll try that again. I don't know what's wrong with it. Even in my other class, it was behaving. Right. So that is the reason why we got 0 here when we use, please just move, don't waste my time. That's why we have 0 here when we use the count function to count the number of IDs that we have in the invoice column. Because Excel is defining that particular column as a text column. But if you want to try something else, it says, how many transactions do we have in the quantity column? So we want to know how many quantities do we have, like the total number of quantities that we have there, right? So how many quantities? This 1, this 2, this 3. Basically, we want to use the count function to do what we did here, but now in a column that is defined as a number, right? So inside of my text, I'm going to say equals to count. Remember I said that you can always look at the formula bar. This is called the formula bar to see the formula writing. So I'm going to say count, and then I'm going to give it the value, right? Which value do I want to count? The quantity column, right? So I can say, remember the last time I did H2, I clicked on H2 and I dragged it down. But if I have a very large data set up to 1,000 rows, I definitely don't want to be dragging down, right? Now that I've highlighted the first H2, all I can do is click on Control Shift. This is a shortcut button, so you can write it Control Shift and down. Control Shift down is going to highlight everything I have in that column. If I want it to go to the side, Control Shift and side, I'm going to take it to the side. So if I click on Control Shift down, everything I have in that cell is now highlighted, right? The count function is not adding up values. Remember, it's just counting number of cells. Like it's just going to count number of cells that have numbers. So it's not going to start adding up values. It's your sum function that is going to sum the numbers that you have inside of these cells, right? So I have written that down, which is H2 all the way to H26. You can see that because we have that inside of our formula, this is telling you, anywhere you see highlighter, it means that that is the column that you're trying to work with, right? So if I close my bracket and enter, we have 25, which is what we're supposed to have before. But because this was defining as a text column, that is why we got 0. And we said that the count function only counts number of cells that contains numbers. I hope nobody has issues with the count function. Then we have the count A. The count A function, we said that it's used to count number of cells that are not empty, right? So whether it is character that is in the cell or it is space. So computer, right? Your normal computer 101. Spaces are referred to as, they are counted as values. So if I open a cell, if I click on a cell like this cell is empty like this. You can see where the cursor is blinking at the very beginning. This cell is referred to as an empty cell. But the moment I put space, this cell is no longer empty. This cell has a value in it, right? Just know that. Now, the count A function is used to count number of cells that contains values as long as that cell is not empty. So if I do something like this, let's not even look at the question. If I say A, enter, dot, enter, comma, enter, space, you can see I have space, enter, 1, enter, and I have space again, enter, and I have T. I just want to put so many things. If I count the values I have from here to T, I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 values, right? But what you can see for the number of cells that are not empty, there are 5. So where are we getting 7 from? Because in this particular cell, I have space, and space is referred to as something, as a character in the computer, not just Excel, in computer language. As long as you have something inside of that cell, is referred to as a character, right? So if I use the count A function, and we say that the count A function is used to count number of cells that are not empty. So if I come here and I say equals to count A, right? And I give it from here, that's Q11, all the way to T, and close my bracket, enter. You can see I have 7. If you're looking at it and I say count how many things you have here, you would have said 5, right? Because you did not see this. That is one of the reasons why we are going to be performing data cleaning, right? Because imagine you have such thing and you have a very large data set, and this space that you have here is somewhere in between a very large data set, and you want to see the total number of values that you have. This is supposed to be referred to as an empty cell, but because of the space in it, Excel is going to say there's value inside, and you might not even check it, and then maybe you go and give a wrong value and then wrong analysis. One of the reasons why we're going to perform data cleaning. So, but then basically the count A function counts anything. So whether it is cell that it is in, whether it is text that is in the column in the cell, whether it is number, whether it is character, whether it is spaces, as long as that particular cell is not empty, the count A function is going to do that. So this particular calculation I did here, if I want to do the same thing to get the same answer, I can just use count A. So if I just want to count number of cells and I don't want any wahala, I'm just going to use my count A function, because count A function is also going to count number column. You can count text column, you can count anything, right? So if I want to now check, this one says how many non-blank entries are there in the city column, right? So this is my city column. I want to check how many of these cells are not empty. So basically saying use the count A function to count, right? So here I'm just going to clear this. So if you want to clear this, what we have, right click and click on clear content. Do not delete. If you delete, you are either deleting the entire row or the entire column. But for now, just clear content, what you have, and it's gone. So it says how many non-blank entries do we have in the city column, right? So we know that the count A function is going to count number of cells that are not empty. So it's basically asking you in the city column, how many values do you have there? So we are going to say equals to count A, and we're going to go to the city column and give it the city column, right? So the city column started from C2 all the way. We can drag down, remember, and we can also use the control shift down. You can only use the control shift down when you've highlighted the first value. So you're saying from the first value, give me everything you have, right? So now you close your bracket and then you enter. You can see we have 25. If I use the count function to do the same thing, it's going to give me 0 because that city column is identified as a text column. Hope that is clear. Is anybody having any issues up to this moment? Okay. Then we have the count blank. The count blank is used to count number of cells that are blank, as you know already. Now, Prince, why are you crying? It's used to count number of cells that are blank, right? So it says how many blank cells are there in the branch column. So we're just going to say equals to count blank, right? Go to the column that is talking about blank and give it the range. So this is B2, and all we need to do is say control shift and down, right? Now control shift down in this aspect is not so wise. Why? Because the control shift, yes, the text function can be used for that, but we have not entered text function. I don't want to be bringing functions like that for now. So the control shift down in this aspect has limitation, right? Because it will always highlight up to the moment it stops seeing data. So because this particular cell is blank, control shift down now stopped in number 2. So it's not working. See, you see have to work. So one way to get this, right, to get what I have here without dragging. So if I drag it all the way down, I'm going to get it. But one way, imagine I have up to a million row, like I said before, and now this is not the best time to use your control shift down. How do I do this without stressing myself? Here that I have this formula, if I clean this, I can write it myself. I know that the first value I have is in B2, right? All I need to do is write B, sorry, in bracket. All I need to write is B2, right? You can see that the first value is highlighted. I want it to highlight everything I have in the B column without using my dragging or doing control shift down. Now I'm going to put a column and I'm going to write the last value I have in the B column, which is B26. So I'm going to say B26. Close brackets. You can see that everything is highlighted now, right? My control shift down did not work here because there's a particular cell that is empty. So control shift down will keep highlighting until you find somewhere that is empty and then it will stop. That's why if you notice that anytime we use it, when it gets to the last cell, as we've been using it, when it gets to the last value, it will not highlight the rest because it's saying, oh, I cannot find anything there, right? So when you go to this part where we have a blank cell, we left it, we did not use it anymore. So we now have to write it ourselves. So you can always write it by yourself. You don't have to wait to use control shift down or to highlight it. As long as you know where the beginning value is and the last value, all you need to do is write what it is, write the cells. So B2 range B26. Close your bracket and enter. So it says the number of blank cells that we have in this branch column are 2, and we can feed that for ourselves 1, 2. So they are blank. Within the range of cell that we gave to it, these are the blank values that it can identify. Emmanuel, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, okay. So if we have large data, like over millions of rows, how do
About what?
we, as a millions of rows,
First of all,
so
you
how do
cannot have
we,
millions of rows in Excel, but go on.
okay. So how do we highlight if we have light data? Do we need to scroll down to
No,
the end
I
to get?
just no, you don't have to. I just said that, right? So let's say I have values to 500 to the 500 row in Excel, and I want to perform a calculation. Let's say here in this big column, I want to check the number of cells that are empty, right? And I say equals to count blank, and my data stopped in 500, right? All I need to do, like I was saying, you can write it yourself, is write where the thing started from. That's B2. Put your column, right? The dot dot, and then write the last cell that you have, which is B500. Can you notice that this thing I've highlighted all the way to, if I take it all the way to 500, I see that it stopped at 500. So if I have my data all the way to 1000, I just need to write it myself. B2 range 1000. If I have 1 million, I just need to know the first cell and then the last cell and then write it myself, right? So I for one, I don't even like using the control shift down because after finish doing control shift down, you have to drag all the way up, right? So all you need to do is write the first cell and then the last cell. So you know the number you have in the last cell. Write B2 all the way to the B last thing that you have, and then you highlight the entire row. Are we good?
Yeah.
Manu, are you clear now?
Yes, that's fine.
So that's for that. So that's for our count A and then count blank, right? So we're moving over to the sum function. We said you see where you see this I don't know what to call it, I don't know what this one is called, but you see where my cursor is now, this last place. You can drag it by yourself all the way down. Can you see that it's still moving? So I can drag it to 1,000, I can drag it all the way down. Right. So if I have up to 500,000 rows, I think after 500,000 rows, your Excel will start showing you that it's stronger than you. So don't even try it. So you can move it all the way to 500,000 rows. So I just need to drag it from what I have from the beginning down to the end and know the last row that I have. And by the way, sir, if you're importing data, you're definitely going to know how many rows of data that you have, right? So you know the beginning. The beginning is the first one you're saying, and then you know the end of the data. Any calculation you want to perform, you just need to give it the beginning and the end, except you have something else. Person that asked that question, hope it's clear. Okay. So now we're moving over
Yes,
to
please.
this. We're moving over to the sum function. The sum function is used for calculation, right? It's addition. So you are not using text in this one. Any column you're giving to the sum function means that this column is you can add it up. So I cannot say A plus B plus C. I can say 1 plus 2 plus 3. So if you're definitely using it for a column that contains numbers, right? We say we use it for addition. So why is the sum function necessary, right? Why is it better than using A1, A2, A3? Sorry, 1 plus 1, 2 plus 2, 2 plus 3. So let's say, for instance, I have 1, 2, sorry, backspace, 4, 5. So if I have all of this, right, and I want to add this up using my normal formula addition, I'm just going to say equals to this, right? Then I'm going to put in my plus sign. Then I'm going to say plus this. 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 And then enter 14. But that was a lot. This small thing I just did was a lot. Imagine if you have over 1,000 rows. When are you going to finish? This is why they now created the sum function so that you don't have to be doing this. So that's the essence of the sum function. So using the sum function to get the same thing I just got with this formula, right? All I need to do is to say equals to sum, then give it equals to sum, then give it the first value I have. The first value I have is in what? Who can tell me where the first value is? What is the name of the cell of the first value?
R21.
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 Is it
Out
R21?
21.
Okay, yes, R21. So all I need to do is either write R21 or click on R21. So if I say R21, you can see that R21 is highlighted, right? And then I'm going to give it the range of cell I want it to add up. The last value is not going to be R26. So it's not going to be R26. Okay, not 26, it's 25,
R25.
right? And I'm going to close my bracket and enter. I've gotten the same 14. You can see how easy it is to get this one. So if I have over a million rows of numbers I want to add up, I'm not going to start saying R1 plus R2 plus R3 plus R4. Before I finish writing it, maybe I will even tell the man that employed me that, "Sir, I don't think I can continue in this side of business. I want to give up." So that's why the sum function came into the picture to make things better for you to perform calculation even easier, right? So I hope we know why the difference between functions and formulas now, why formulas and functions are necessary. So this question says, what is the total number of unit price that we have, the total unit price that we have, right? So we have a column that is telling us about the unit price. It says, what is the total? So add up this unit price and tell me the total. So in situation like this, if I'm now using the addition, so I will now say 74.69 plus 15 plus 0.28. I'm even tired saying it. So all I need to do is come to that cell where I want my answer, and I'm going to say equals to the sum function, and then I'm going to give it the range of numbers that I want, right? So I'm going to go back to the column where I want to sum up, which is the G column, right? So my first value is G2. I can drag down, I can decide to write it myself, I can decide to use the control shift down. So if I drag down because my data is so small, I don't need to stress myself. I have that. So I'm saying add up the numbers that you have from G2 all the way to G26. And then I'm going to close my brackets and enter. So the total number I have from G2 to G26, that's the total number values I have, the unit price. So it's not like your count function. Your count function is just counting the number of cells, like 1, 2, 3, just counting the cells. But the sum function is summing up the values you have inside of the cells. So by the time it's done summing up this function, it gave us the answer as 1461.79. This is the total unit price that we have from our data set. Are we good?
Yes, yes.
Is
Yes,
it
yes.
good? So that it's not be like I'm talking. One person is going to answer my question now. Azuka.
Yes.
Azuka, are you here? Azuka, you joined the class and you ran away. Okay, Azuka is not here.
I'm here actually. I'm here.
Okay. So I want you to help us answer the next question that we have. What is the total revenue across all transactions? I want to get the total revenue generated. So how do I do that?
You you start using the sum starting from
So tell me
IT
exactly what
IT.
you do.
Okay, you on the formula bar here, you click sum open
So
bracket
is this sum that I will write first? What is the first thing you do when you want to perform a calculation?
equals to actually. That's
Mhm.
Equal to.
sum.
So equals to
Yes,
where?
it equals
Equals
to
to some
sum then open bracket.
I2.
Okay, IT straight down to I-26.
And you close the bracket.
Nice. So close the bracket and enter.
Enter.
Thank you. Thank you, Azuka. So the total revenue, somebody is asking about the file. You came to this class late. So the total revenue generated our sales from our entire store is $8,000, $8,442. That's what we generated from the total revenue. That is what the sum function is used for, adding up these values that we have, right? So that's for the sum function. So same thing with the average function. So we said that the average function is used to get the mean value. That's average. So now instead of using mean or performing mean like our normal mathematics, so if I want to get the mean of this rating column as we were asked, it says what is the average rating for all column for all customers, right? So basically asking you for the mean value of these values you have here. So if I wanted to go through my normal math, I will say 9.1 plus 9.6 plus this, and I will add it all and then divide by the total number, which is 26. Sorry, which is 25. I know mathematics. Anyways, but you don't want to do that. Excel is all about easy life and fast life, something like that, right? So we want to get the average, which is also known as the mean value for the ratings that we have. All we need to do is to say equals to average, spelling nonsense, right? And give it the range of numbers that we want to look for the average, right? So the average of what? The rating. So I'm going to say N2 all the way to N26. So I have N25. And just go back, right? Close bracket and then enter. So the average rating is 6.49 from our entire rating that we got from different customers. So adding it up and dividing by the total number, the answer is 6.492, right? So that's the average rating. The same thing if you want to get the average revenue generated by our transactions, that's average revenue generated by all the transactions that we have. You're going to do that using the average, right? So now let's move to the max. There's no long story about average. Let's move to the max. So the max, you use to get the maximum value. That's the biggest number. You can see that from the sum function, we have been talking about numbers, 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 no longer text, because you cannot go and look for average text. Can you see the average supermarket? Or can you see the average payment method? No, you can only see the average number of something. So the same thing with our max, we can only see the biggest numbers. We can only see the biggest number, right? And this question says, which are the, I don't think my screen is frozen. I think you can leave and join the call again. So it says, what is the maximum revenue in the data set? That's what's the biggest revenue generated. We want to see who generated the biggest revenue for us from our supermarket, right? All we need to do inside of our cell where we want the answer, we're going to say equals to max, right? And then give it the range of cell, that is the revenue. So we're saying go to this revenue column. I don't want to do it myself, and fish out the biggest number for me. So I'm going to give it all the values I have there, and I'm going to close my bracket and enter. So it says the biggest revenue I have is 736. 736 is the maximum revenue I have in my data, right? So if you want to do the same thing for rating also, all you need to do is say equals to max, and we're going to give it n2. I know that it's n2 because I know that we're working with the n column all the way to n26. You can see that everything I have in the n column, right? So let's take it up so that you know that that's the rating column. You can see rating. So this is n2 all the way to n26, right? So now we can now close brackets and then enter. We have that, right? So I want to teach you people how to do something. I just did something now, right? So if you move like this, you realize that you can no longer see the header of the column anymore, right? So you can make the header of those column, this column that you have, to be frozen. You can make the header to be frozen so that anytime you move down, you can always see the header of where you are. I knew that that was rating because I've seen the data and I know that rating is the last thing in the end column, right? But what if I was down here and I want to see revenue and I don't know which one is revenue? I'll have to go back up. So to do that, I'm just going to highlight the first row that I want to be frozen. And I'm going to go to my view tab. I think it's under my view tab. Yes, freeze panel, right? So I'm going to say freeze top row. So your view tab all the way to freeze panel, and I'm going to say freeze top row. If I want to freeze first column, that's this A column, so that if I'm moving like this and it's not moving, I can do that, right? If I want to freeze top row and first column, I can also do that. So I'm going to freeze top row. So anytime I'm moving, if I move, you can see that I can still see the name of these columns up there, right? So I don't need to go up all the time to see which column I'm working with. I already know where it is anytime I move. Okay, hope that is clear. Then we just spoke about the maximum function. We have the minimum function, and the minimum function is the opposite of the maximum function. The minimum is used to get the smallest number or the smallest value you have within a range of values, right? So it says, what is the minimum revenue in the data set, right? So I'm just going to say equals to min, INM, and you're going to give it the range. So the revenue, like we already know, is what column? The I column. You can see now because my column is frozen, my panel is frozen, that's the header is frozen. I don't need to be going up again. I just know that, oh, it started from whatever, I2, and then I have the last value, which is I26. So here I'm just going to say, you can be looking up here in your formula bar to see what I'm writing. So I2 and I26. Close your brackets and enter. So the minimum revenue we have is 58. The maximum revenue we have is 736. So the maximum gets the biggest number, the minimum gets the smallest number within a range of numbers, right? So now we're going to move to substitute and the round function. In order to do this, we are going to move to a new worksheet because I don't want you guys to get confused. It can be a bit confusing. So the substitute, we said that we use it to replace value. I think I skipped that during the explanation. I can't remember explaining it, but let me explain it. So the substitute function is used to, as the name implies, when you say you want to substitute something, you want to change something into something else, right? So that's what the substitute function is used for. You can also use the find and replace to do this. But one thing to note about Excel is that Excel can misbehave. See, I had to reduce my volume to say that. Excel can misbehave, meaning that if you know only one way to do something in Excel, one day like this, that one way will decide not to work and you will be stuck. So it's always better to know two or more ways to do it. So that if one way is doing shakara, you try the other way, most likely it's going to work, right? So you can also do what we are doing with what we call find and replace. So as we say, substitute, change this to this, right? Find and replace. Okay, go and find this thing for me and replace it with this. So they're basically doing the same thing, right? So what we want to use the substitute function to do, it says replace all occurrence of health and beauty um, with health and beauty. Let me change it to something else so that it makes more sense. Okay, there's and function. Okay. We want to change the and. So basically what we are changing there is the and. So it says replace all occurrence of health and beauty with health and, that's the ampersand sign, and beauty in the product column, in this column that we have, right? So in order for us to be able to do this, so we have a full line of data. So this one is not going to give us just one answer because we want to change this value we have here. We're also going to change this health and beauty. We also want to change this health and beauty. So we have to do it in a column and no longer in a cell. So we have to insert a column. So if you want to insert a new column, so let's say we can basically do this in the C column here, right? But then I want space between the question and this. I just have to say right click, highlight the column that I have here, right click, and I'm going to insert. So you can insert columns inside a data set that you already have. If I go back to my more complicated data set where I have plenty values here, and I want to insert something here, let's say I want to perform a calculation that has to do with revenue, and I want it to be close to revenue. How do I insert a column? I will insert the column that is after the revenue, right? So I'm going to highlight the column that is after the revenue, right click on it, and then click on insert. You can see that I have a space to do whatever I wanted to do there. So I don't need to delete my data set and start writing it again to get that. That's for that. That was what I was trying to do here. So you see that it makes sense here. So if I want it out, I just need to right click and then click on delete. It's gone. So let's go back to our substitute. So it says we should change health and beauty to health ampersand beauty, right? Using the substitute function. So inside of this column, cell, sorry, I'm going to say equals to the substitute function, right? So one thing about Excel is it will always tell you what to do if you pay close attention. So if you notice here, when we call out the substitute function, it says text, old text, new text, instant number. But for now, forget about instant number because that's a whole new level, right? So one thing to note is when you write a function in Excel and you see something in a square bracket, this is referred to as a square bracket. It means that it can be ignored and your function will run perfectly. But if you have it to give it to Excel, that's excellent. If you don't have it to give it to Excel, your function will run perfectly, right? For now, instant number is not something I'm going to explain. Until we get to text function, we can now explain it. So for text, what does it mean by text? It's saying give me the text that you want to change something from. What is the text that you want to change something from, right? And what I want to change something from is I want to change health and beauty. That is the text that I want to change. So inside of health and beauty, what do I want to change? What is the old text that I want to change? What do you want to change? Right? It says I should change health and beauty to health and beauty. Right? So I'm going to write in a quote. If you're writing, wait, let me increase. Okay, I not for now writing, sorry, just manage. Be looking at the formula bar. If you're writing text, if you're writing text, if you're writing text in a formula or in a function in Excel or in any of these tools, you have to write it in a quote. Text are always, they're always too special. You can see that too many things, they cannot be converted to numbers. When you want to write them, you have to write them in a quote. So you have to write your text in a quote, right? So the text I want to change is health and beauty. So I don't even need to even write all the entire thing. That's one thing with the substitute. I can just say the only difference between these two things I want to change is the ampersand, right? And this and. So I can now say what I want to change is and in quotes. What do I want to change that and with, right? So if you notice, anytime I put a comma, it goes to a new thing. Anytime anything is highlighted, you can see that this is highlighted. This is not. It's trying to tell you that this is what. Please look at the formula bar, please. Because if I click out, this formula will now be wrong. I have to start from beginning. Look at the formula bar. The formula bar, I think, is bigger, I guess. Is it not? Don't worry, I'm waiting it. Let me just increase it. All right. So we want to use the substitute function to change and to and, right? Inside of the health and beauty. Inside of health and beauty, we want to change and to and, right? So I'm going to say equals to substitute. So substitute takes the text that you want it to work on. That's where you now see the limitation of find and replace. Some people say, find and replace can easily do this now. You see the limitation of find and replace very soon. So the substitute will take the text that you want it to work on. The text I want it to work on is health and beauty. So I'm just going to click on it, right? I want it to work on health and beauty. What should it do on health and beauty? That's the old text I want it to change is called and, right? Then I'm going to put a comma. It says new text. What do you want it to change it to? I'm not going to say I want it to change it to ampersand. So this is called an ampersand sign, and then close the quote, right? Now I can close my bracket. I don't need to give it instance number. For now, you don't need to know what instance number is because that's a whole new level. I don't want to confuse you. So I'm going to now close my bracket at this point and enter. You say I'm not in your mood. Sorry, let's try that in another set. Equals to substitute. Comma. Somebody wants to join the call by this time. Don't know. You can see that Excel. When I say the head is to touch, it's not so that it not be like it's me that is talking anyhow. You can see that what we wrote here, the same thing we did here. But he decided that this C column is not going to work for that thing. So try it somewhere else. It can happen like that. It's not your village people. That's just how Excel is. So you can see that that's changed the and we have here to ampersand, right? And one other beautiful thing about Excel is that you can spread a formula through. You don't need to write. So if I want to now spread it to this health and beauty, I'll start writing equals to substitute. No, right? All I need to do is autofill, is what we call autofilling. All I need to do is autofill what I have here to the very down part, right? So if you notice, I want you to take note of all the plus sign that we're seeing. This plus sign is different from this plus sign. It's also different from this plus sign. So when I take it to the edge of my cell and I see this plus sign, it means that I can autofill. It means we call it referencing. It means that the other cells that I have can reference the calculation I did at the top. So I don't need to write the calculation all the time or the functions all the time. I just need to reference that particular cell, right? So the calculation, the referencing will be moving by itself. So we call it relative referencing. So if I come here and I double clicking can work. Sometimes it might not work. Sometimes you have to drag it all the way down. If double clicking is not working, yeah, that means you have to drag it all the way down this time around. So if you have 1,000,000 rows and your double clicking is not working, I can't help you. You just have to be dragging it all the way down. So now when you see this plus sign like this, you double click. Can you see that it double clicked and then it stopped there? Excel can be crazy like that. This part, when it's doing like that, all I need to do is drag it by myself to the end. Just drag it, make sure that that plus sign is showing, and then you drag it all the way down, right? So that's how we now use the substitute sign, the substitute function to change the and that we have here to ampersand that we have. So we no longer have the and in our lifestyle, sorry, in our health and beauty. We also changed the one in lifestyle. I wanted to use it and show you guys the limitation of find and replace function. It feels like this substitute function is now working like find and replace. So your find and replace, your substitute function, the reason why you are giving it the text is so that it knows the particular text to work with. But it looks like the head is now touching because it's not supposed to work on this home and lifestyle. But then you saw and in home and lifestyle and they changed it for you also. Saying okay, oh, okay, it's because sorry, it's not Excel, it's me. It's because I'm referencing that particular cell. So it went to that particular cell and then it's referencing the value that it has there. Okay, yeah. So if I had given it or if I had locked the particular thing, so what am I talking about locking? Please, I hope I'm not confusing anybody. So let's say inside of this particular place, I have health and beauty. Health and beauty. Sorry about that. I hope what I'm trying to do is going to explain what I want to explain very well. Let me try it first before I explain. Let me not give you full stupid explanation at the same time it doesn't work. Right? So if I say okay, it will not work in this stage. Don't worry about it. Maybe when we get somewhere else, you can now explain that. But it will not work for what I want to explain. So basically, that's how you use the substitute function to change something. Also, we're talking about how find and replace can do the same thing, what we just did here, changing the and to ampersand, right? So all I need to do if I wanted to do the same thing here, your find and replace, you don't need to start creating a new column. But because we are working with a calculation, that's a function, we had to create a new column, right? So if I take out this column, this is going to be invalid. You're not going to have that again. It's showing you reference error because the cell that it's referencing cannot be found anymore, right? So you can't take it out. So when we do data cleaning proper, I'm going to tell you how you can take it out and it's not going to be showing you reference error. But for now, just know that you can't take it out. So Control Z to get that back. But to do this same thing I just did here, without wasting your time to write the substitute function, which is a faster way. But sometimes, like I said, it's better to know more than one way to do something, right? All I need to do is use my find and replace. So if you go to your home tab, you're going to see something that has a search button, right? Search, find, and select, da 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 da. If you click on this drop down arrow you have, you can see the different things that you can do there. But what we want to do is that we want to find and replace a particular value, right? So we're going to click on replace, and we have this, right? Now, you can get that like that, or you can just simply use the shortcut key. I like shortcut a lot. Control H and we've gotten the find and replace um, find and replace formula box. So it's either you go to your home tab, and I cannot see you now. I can't be teaching at the same time and be looking at whose hand is up. Ask your question.
Oh, sorry, it's fine. So I wanted to ask if we could go through this process, and that's fine. I wanted to ask if you could go through the replace and that you are currently doing. So it's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So to get this faster, Control H to get it, or you can just go to your home tab and come down all the way to find and replace to get this, right? So what are we looking for? We're looking for and. What do we want to replace and with? We want to replace it with ampersand, right? So let's click on replace all. Can you see how fast that was done? Like so fast. If you are trying your if you're doing your analysis before you even start using substitute, just use the find and replace to do it. If it doesn't work before you now start moving to substitute to do that, right? But you find and replace to do it in seconds. But sometimes find and replace can be like your Excel can show you that it's stronger than you. That is the whole essence of using the substitute function, right? So this is the very short way to do that. So you can just say okay. If you don't want it, you can always Control Z your way back into. That's one thing about Excel. One lovely thing about Excel, you can always Control Z. When you get to other tools, you know that Control Z no dey work. So when you Control Z, Control Z no work o. Oh well. It's like Excel is now okay. It's working now. So Control Z is back. It's back to how it was. To run through the process again, to do the same thing we did with the substitute function, what we have here, all you need to do is highlight that particular cell, right? That particular column, and then Control H, and you're going to change what are you looking for. Find what? Find and replace it with what? Ampersand. And then you are going to say replace all of it. And that is done. Is anybody
Annie,
confused about this? Should we move?
Annie, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, if we want to replace and only in the cells that have health and beauty instead of all the product line that we have in whichever column in column B. Is there a way we can make Excel understand that it should only replace and in the cells that have health and beauty?
Yes, I think you can only use substitute to do that. If you're using find, that's one of the limitations of find and replace. If you're using find and replace, the moment you tell it and, it will change anything that has to do with and in that particular data, right? But when you're using the substitute function, I think there's a way to actually do that. But then you have to write the entire word. So if I want to get the same thing I have here, let me control Z back, sorry. So I want to change what I have, but I just want it to happen for only health and beauty and not
Okay.
these other ones, right? If I use equals to substitute, right, and I give it this column and comma, my text is now going to be health and beauty. My old text is going to be health and beauty. Close my quote. My new text is going to be health and this works perfectly without any. Somebody, somebody asking a question and somebody's microphone is on. So let's also fill and see what we have. Can you see the difference now? For me to be able to get that for just health and beauty, when I'm writing the old text and the new text, I have to specify that I want you to work with just health and beauty and change it to health and beauty, right? So by the time it moves it, because the formula is going to move to the next cell, right? So if I was just, let's look at this first one. I said B2, go to B2, change and that was what he did. And the next one says go to B3, change and to and, but he went there and he did not find any and, so he didn't change it. The next one says go to B4. You can see that it's changing, right, according to the cells. So the next one says go to B4, change and to ampersand, and that was what he did. That was why lifestyle was affected. But in this other part, I was more specific, right? I said go to B2, change health and beauty to health and beauty, and that was what he did. Then he went to this C3 and then he said, I said change health and beauty to health and beauty. But nothing happened there because he cannot find health and beauty there. So he's saying, okay, this is not for me, skip. Then he went to the next one and he says B4, change health and beauty to health ampersand beauty. It did not, nothing happened there because he did not find health and beauty. So there's no how he was going to change only the and I have there. So I gave it a complete word and that was what he was looking for. That's the difference between calling out a particular word and calling out the full statement. So if I want it to react to only that text that I have in that to only that particular text that I have in that column, I have to call it that cell, I have to call it out completely so that Excel knows exactly what it's doing. So but then your find and replace cannot do this, right? If you tell
And
your find and replace to go and change health and beauty and change this to it, it will start telling you you cannot find it. So that's one of the limitations. And then if you tell your find and replace that to go and change the and function, change and to ampersand, it's going to change and everywhere it finds and in that document to ampersand.
okay,
I think it will work if we
exactly.
use if we use health and beauty. I think it will work. We try that. I
Yes, I
think it
just
will work.
tried it now and it will work.
We don't get plenty teachers for our class here. Okay, let's try.
No, sorry.
Let's try now. Okay, that worked. That's nice. Good to know that it worked. So you can either use substitute or you can use find and replace. But my own go-to all the time is find and replace instead of writing your substitute function. Except your substitute and your find and replace starts misbehaving, then you can now go to your substitute. So hope we are clear about this. Is anybody still confused about find and
Excuse me,
replace and
Shelby.
substitute?
Find and replace is control.
Sorry?
The find and replace is control H. After you have clicked the column of what you want to do.
Yes, control H, yes.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, excuse me, please. I want to, sorry to take us back to the average formula where we use the average in full. And I know there was a bracket carrying average AVG. Are we saying that we can use that AVG instead of using average in full?
No, you
Just
cannot
like,
use AVG. Sorry. It's only when you get to
okay,
SQL that you can use. In Excel, you must call it in full.
okay,
The moment you write equals to AV, you can see all the things that you can call. Use any AVG there, you'll see all the things that have to do with average there. Do you understand?
yes, yes, it's not substantive.
But then when you get to SQL, it's called as AVG. Are you good now?
Yeah,
Who
fine.
asked a question? Okay. So now we're going to move to the last one, which is our round function, right? So what we're going to do with our round function, again, there's a function that can do it, right? And there's a very simple way to do it. And then I'm also going to show us how to do it with our round function. So this we have two questions here, and it says that we should change our numbers to the nearest whole number, and we should change to the nearest one decimal place. So if you notice, let me increase the size of this text. Sorry. Hope it's big enough now. So if you notice, we have 26.142, 3.82, and we want to round these numbers that we have here to the nearest whole number according to the very first question we have. All I need to do without using the round function is highlight that particular column, right? Now I have this my number formatting under my home tab. I have the number ribbon. There's a shortcut to get this full tab. There's a shortcut to get this, right? The shortcut is Control 1. If you press Control 1 in your Excel, it's going to open this for you. But I don't need to even go there. So there's something that has an arrow there with three dots in case you are not seeing, with three circles in case you are not seeing my screen, right? Under the number ribbon, you have something that has arrow. One is going up, one is going down. So what this does, you can see, is that it increases decimal. So it means that it will increase the number of decimal places that you have, while this is going to decrease the number of decimal places that you have. So if I want to reduce this to the nearest whole number, I just need to click on this. You can see why Excel is now showing itself. Okay, so let me just use one. I don't know all of it. So I'm going to click on it. You can see that I'm using just 26 point this. Let me take it back to what it was. It was like this, 26.142, right? And I want to reduce it to the nearest whole number. If I use my ribbon that I have here and I click on this decrease, you can see that it's not nearest. This is now in two decimal place. If I click on it again, one decimal place. If I click on it again, whole number. I've gotten that. If I want to make it to be one decimal place, you can see this other arrow that is saying increase decimal place. If I click on it, one decimal place. If I click on it, two decimal place. 3, I can also increase it to 4, I can also increase it to 5, and so on, right? If I want to take it to the nearest whole number again, here, here, just keep pressing it until I get whole number. So this is how you can use this your number ribbon to round up numbers to the nearest whole number that you have, or to the nearest one decimal, just to round your numbers up. But let's say a situation where your Excel is now misbehaving and you want to write a function to do your work without wasting time. This is where the round function comes into play. So we're going to say equals to the round, right? So the round function takes the number that you want to change, and then the number of digits that you want it to change it to. That's number of decimal places. So this should be number of decimal places, right? So the number I want to change is what I have in V2. I want to change what I have to in V2 to a whole number, right? That means I don't want any decimal place. Automatically, what I'm trying to say is number of decimals should be 0. So I'm going to give it the number I have, and then the number of decimals should be 0. Close my tab and enter. On a normal day, when you do this thing, you're not going to get 26.000. But when Excel wants to show you that it's stronger than you, you'll see all of those things. Let's try in another cell. Anyways, it keeps doing like that. If I take it to a new worksheet, it might be better. I need it to show today. This Excel have embarrassed me today enough. Let me put it here. Me and you will fight today. I'll show you that I'm stronger. You show me that I'm strong anyways. So when you use this on a normal day, when your Excel is the head, if I close and open my Excel and run this function again, it's just going to show me 26. If you are with your laptop, if you're trying alongside with me and put in a random number and try this, you're going to get, let me put in another thing. note that you're going to get a whole number, nothing like points, anything, right? So let's say round this 0 plus. Can you see that? It's not the same thing I've been writing here, but like I said, the Excel will show you that it can misbehave sometimes, right? So if you're using the round function to get to the nearest whole number, you're going to say, let me increase this, we'll keep working with this sheet because the other sheet is now misbehaving. So what I did was I was trying to make this number I have here to the nearest whole number, so I don't have any decimal at all. And then I use the round function. Remember I showed us how to use this, but now I use the round function. So I said, take this the value you have in H10 and convert it into the nearest whole number. So the number of decimals I gave to it is 0. If I also want to convert it to the nearest one decimal place, I'm going to say equals to round, right? Give it this value, and I'm going to say comma 1, close brackets, and enter. If I also want to give it to the nearest two decimal places, I'm going to say equals to round and this, comma 2, close brackets, and enter. So that's basically the same thing we did with what we have up there. That's using the that's using the round function to round up our numbers, right? So Excel can misbehave. Just have that in mind, that especially where you know what you're supposed to get, just keep trying, or maybe close it and open it again. That's why most people tell you that they prefer other apps, because other apps, when you do something, that's what you're supposed to get. I guess sometimes too they also misbehave, especially when they are updating system and all of that. Right. So that's what we use the round function to do. That's the only thing it does, to round up your numbers for you, to give you round figures, yeah, one decimal place, two decimal place, three decimal places, four decimal places. Right. Are we good?
Yes, we are good.
I
Yeah,
just I just feel
yeah,
like
we are good.
why that point
Yes, we are good.
140 didn't come to a round number, just because the number that's at the back of it's no number that you can approximate. Just like it's 1.2. You cannot one cannot approximate, like you cannot carry one from that one to add into 6 for it to be 27. I think that's why it is 0 0 0 0 at the back.
That's not why it is.
My thoughts
Let me
just
show you. Let me show you something. Right?
I don't think
Let's see
so.
something. So 26.142. Are you saying that that was not the issue?
okay. Okay.
Just know that your Excel can be the weapon fashion against you. I want you to have it in the back of your mind. So the day you come to me and tell me that you did one formula overnight, it did not work. You woke up in the morning, it was working. Just have it in your mind that Excel can misbehave. So that is it for the basic functions that we have in Excel, that we have other basic functions, right? But these functions are not something you're going to be using all the time, right? All the time. But these ones that we just got now are the basic functions that we're going to be using. So in our next class, we are going to learn logical functions and statistical functions, right? Logical functions like your if, your and, your or function, your if error, your if NA, and so on. And then we're going to learn statistical functions like your your count ifs, average ifs, some ifs, right? Why are we going to be learning all of these things, especially those statistical functions? So let's say example here. This is giving us the total revenue across all transactions. But let's say a situation where I just want to see the total revenue generated by the people in branch A. How do I do it? Do I now start going to my data set? Will I pick A and write the revenue down somewhere? Come to this A and then write the revenue somewhere. There should be a way that I can be able to make this calculation without killing myself. This is where your statistical function come together, right? But then we're going to learn logical functions, that's the if function and the rest. before we now combine this logical function that you have with your statistical function, with your normal basic function. So you can see that I said average ifs. So a combination of your average function and your if function together, right? But for now, this is where we are going to stop in our today's class. So like I said in our last class, at the end of each class, you're going to get assignments, and your assignment is going to be reviewed by I and Chidima. I think Chidima is here now. Chidima, are you here? Say hi, please.
Hi, good evening
Okay.
all. Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So the assignment is going to be reviewed by I and Chidima, right? And I said something the last time. If you are submitting assignments, submit to either one of us. Don't submit to the both of us at the same time. Please don't try to kill us before our time. So it's either you're submitting to Chidima or you're submitting to us. And your assignment submission must be done on or before Tuesday. Say I was submitting to Chidima. On or that's so funny. On or before Tuesday, right? Anything after Tuesday, I might most likely not look at your assignment. I don't know if Chidima will be so kind to look at it, but might most likely not look at it. Why? Because in as much as I'm your tutor, right, I have other life that I'm living. I'm also a baby girl. So I'm not going to be reviewing assignments 247 with my life, all right? So on or before Tuesday. So you're getting your assignments tomorrow morning, not this night. You're getting assignment tomorrow morning because I means if I want to sleep. You're getting assignment tomorrow morning to be submitted. So if you do it tomorrow morning and you want to submit to the assignment, good. If you do it to Sunday morning and you want to, anytime you do it, but it should be on or before Tuesday, right? Because our class is on Wednesday. Now, the reason why you're submitting it is so that you can get reviews in your DM. Because if we come to class and start solving corrections of assignments in class, it's going to take us longer time. So we can use 1 hour of our class or 2 hours of our class to be solving corrections that would have been done in your DM to save time. So it means that the thing that we're supposed to have that particular day, we might not have it anymore because we're doing corrections of assignments. Means that our class is now going to be longer than 4 months. And if our class is longer than 4 months, you people pay me my money, oh. Just so you know. So if our class is longer than 4 months, you pay my money. So the extra work we are doing is making sure that making sure that was reviewing your assignments in DMs and avoiding coming to class and taking the time for class to do corrections of assignments. But if that's how you could want it, that's also fine by me. Just know that if your class past 4 months, any extra months you are paying for it, just have that at the back of your head, right? So say you guys coconut head. So that was it. Do we have any questions before we go? I can see okay, the person sound it. You can ask your question.
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
don't
Hi, good evening.
good evening.
My question is like, in let's say minus this examples we're having right now, if you're given a data set, would you get the questions or do you have to like figure those out yourself?
For now, you'll be getting the questions, right? But your questions is not going to come in clean English. Oh. Just don't worry, you see your
Okay.
questions. It's not going to come in clean English. So one thing you should know about my classes is that your brain will work, right? But then you're going to get questions, but it's not going to tell you calculate unit price. No, my dear. It's not going to come like that,
Okay.
but you're going to get questions. But then when you start working on your own personal projects, like outside of these classes, you're going to be
Yeah.
getting questions for yourself. Right? When you start defining problems and all of that, you know when to use functions, when to use formulas, when to use count, when to use sum. That's so one thing I always say is it's not about cramming the formulas. Some of you start cramming formulas. No. What I want you to understand in all of these classes that we are having is when do you need to use these things? That's why I sat down and I'm explaining basic function for two hours. When do you need to use these things and not how to use it? When are you using it? You can learn how to use it, that's how to write it, but how to write it is on the internet. So basically, it's like saying, okay, um, you know how to cook what are they calling it? Egusi soup. But you don't know when to cook egusi soup. You just wake up in the morning, start cooking egusi soup. Is that the time you cook egusi soup in your village, right? So you need to understand when do you need to use this. So if I give you a question and I'm telling you, or I give you a work, and then I'm talking about total transaction being done in the month of June or total transaction. Basically, you anything that has to do with total summing up values, you know that is your sum function. I don't need to
Okay.
write use the sum function to get this. You're not going to even see that in my assignments. Don't worry about it. So, but then you're going to see English language, and I need to understand that it is English language and break it down into whatever explanation I did in the class, I gave in the class. Are we good?
All right. Thank you. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, okay,
Right.
so thank you. I quickly want to ask, so when do we need to use count blank? So in
Please, when
what
is the video? When is the video dropping?
So when do we need to use count blank? First of all, before somebody decided to chance him. So count blank is used for when you want to count number of blank cells that you have. That's just what you use for. When you want to count number of cells that are empty. So if I say count number of cells that are empty, or what are the blank cells that you have in a particular column, I'm basically saying use the count blank function to count. So it's only going to go there to that particular cell, to that particular column, and count cells that are blank, just as we have here. So if you notice that we have two, it says how many blank cells are there in the branch column? We have two. Use when we use a blank, because we have, if we go there and count it, we have one. How did we get value in here? Okay, it's not full. We have one and we have two, right? So that's when you use the count blank. Are we good?
Yeah, I understand that. My question is in real life situation examples. So what does that mean? So that's my question. Um, I understand in this aspect, but in real life situation, so how do we apply that?
The same way you apply it now, if you want to count number of cells that are empty. So if I have a basket and I want to count how many of these baskets that are empty, I'm going to use the count blank to count the basket. But then we are not going outside to use this function, right? You're using it right in your Excel. So when you have data set and you want to see in that particular column or in your entire data, because blank cells are referred to as when your data is blank, the way this column is blank, this column is referred to as a dirty column in data. So you use it when you want to check if that particular column is dirty, or if that particular column or that particular data is dirty. So you can know what to do. So if I count a particular column, let's say I cannot even see these blank cells, and then I do count blank and I see two, it means that I have two blank cells inside of my data, and it means that that data is unclean. I cannot go ahead to start um, analyzing that data with the blank cells that I have there. I have to handle it first of all. So basically, it's just using the blank count blank to just count blank cells, cells that are empty. Okay, so I'm just going to take this person's last question, then we are going to go. So if I want to create a new column inside, so let's say I want to do something that concerns this gender column, and I want it to be close to it. I don't want it to be outside or doing it here and then say, okay, gender is here and the calculation is here. No, I want it to be somewhere here, but I have something here. All I need to do is click on that column, right click, and click on insert. You can see now I have space. It has moved the product to G and say, no, yeah, take space and do what you want to do. That's just how to do it. So the video of this class will be dropped like immediately. Depends, it will load according to how fast network allow it to load, but just know that it will be there. When it's done uploading, I'm definitely going to notify you guys that it's done uploading. Right. Then in the morning you can check the folder for, you are going to see a folder that says assignments. Just make sure you're always checking that Google Drive. Anything you need to know is on that Google Drive. Right. Check it first of all before you come to my DM to ask me and tell me that you did not see video. Me and you will fight. All right. So So my head is turning off. Oh, Matete, matete. Hope I've, hope I not pronounce it wrongly. You can ask your question. Your hand is up. I'm turning off the recording now.